Greetings, brave adventurers! My name is FoxyBard, and I have something special for you today. Now, it is no secret around here that I love Pathfinder 1st Edition, and today I'm going to take you through the process of making a 1st Edition Pathfinder character. Both the race and the class were decided by my patrons on the FoxyBard Discord server, but everything else in the build was decided by me. Now, I am trying to build this character somewhat optimally, so if you're not a fan of characters being good at the thing that they're supposed to be good at, maybe this isn't the video for you? I don't know what to tell you. I will also be doing the normal, baseline Pathfinder 1st Edition character creation with one small addition, and it's one that I use in my own games when I'm running them. I will be starting with 2 traits, and I will get into what that is later. If you would like to follow along, there are links down in the description for all of the choices I make and for all of the resources I use to make them. And I will be following the character creation outline, which is the first link down there. I will also be building this character on Roll20, because I know that's where almost all of you are going to play right now if you're going to play at all. So this video also pulls double duty as a sort of tutorial to at least the Pathfinder character sheet on Roll20. A final shout out to my patrons for giving me this beautiful concept to build. Ratty McRatface, the Ratfolk Ranger. So, grab yourself a seat around the fire as we dig in to Ratty McRatface. Now, step 1 of character creation is get a character sheet. We've already done that. I said we're building it on Roll20, so we move on to step 2. Step 2 is to determine ability scores. There are a few methods of doing this. One of them is very, very, very good, and the other is not. So for those of you looking forward to me rolling stats, that's not happening. I don't like rolled stats. So instead we're going to delve into what I consider one of the best parts of Pathfinder character creation, that is, point buy, which is what I have up on screen. Now, this is a third-party point buy calculator. You don't have to use one, but they're helpful. They make it much quicker and total everything up for you in advance. But just because someone will want to know for sure, I'm going to detail exactly how much every ability score costs in terms of points for point buy. Now, as you can see at the bottom, it says that I have 20 points remaining. I chose to do a 20-point buy because it is the most standard, the most commonly used, and probably what any DMs you go to play with will be using. From there, you can either subtract points or add points to a minimum of 7 or a maximum of 18. And note, this is before race modifiers. So for example, if we were to reduce one score to a 7, that would actually give us 4 more points to work with. The costs are pretty straightforward. A 7 gives you 4 extra points, an 8 gives you 2, a 9 gives you 1, a 10 does not give or subtract any, an 11 costs 1 point, a 12 costs 2 points, a 13 costs 3 points, but then things start to get compounding, because a 14 costs 5 points, a 15 costs 7 points, a 16 costs 10 points, a 17 costs 13 points, and an 18 costs a whopping 17 points. So, starting with a 20 in a stat, because you can also get 2 more from your race, doesn't happen very often if you're playing a 20-point buy game. Not to say you can't, but it means you're only really gonna be good at one thing. Nothing wrong with that, sometimes people are specialists. But in this case, not gonna be what happens. Rangers require more than one stat. And here we are. I've spent all 20 points in what I personally think is not necessarily the most optimal way, but in a pretty good way. This ranger is going to be using a bow, so they are going to need quite a bit of dexterity. Now, in Pathfinder, you don't get your dexterity to your damage with bows. Instead, as you get better and better qualities of composite longbows, you start to add an amount of your strength to your damage. It turns out, you need to be strong to pull back a powerful bow. Who would have thought? Literally everyone, real-life archers, they'll tell you they're strong. They're really, really pretty. I mean, they're strong. Yeah, you need strength to fire a bow effectively. Constitution can be middling because we're going to be in the back. We shouldn't be taking too much damage, and ideally we win ranged fights, though not always, and hey, we'll probably have some meat shields in the front. That's typical for rangers. That's why they give rangers a bigger hit die than, say, a rogue. And I am bumping up their intelligence because in this game, intelligence gives you more skill ranks to spend on skills, which is actually pretty good, as well as it's used for a number of actually very useful skills. So intelligence is a go. Wisdom is used for a lot of ranger class features, including, but not limited to, spellcasting, which obviously matters a lot. And sure, rangers don't get spellcasting until 4th level, but that's not going to stop them from having decent wisdom beforehand. Plus, wisdom is also used for perception and survival, which are both essential to proper rangering. Last, and it pains me, but I had to dump charisma, and it hurts every time I have to do it. But the only thing that charisma is really useful for a ranger is wild empathy or handle animal. Basically, trying to talk to wild animals and make them your friend, or at least make them not see you as food. Now that's pretty niche, and rangers get decent bonuses to that kind of thing anyway, so using charisma as the dump in order to be able to have the number of stats we want in other skills, or abilities, is good, actually, especially because of the race that I was handed. They are, well, pretty good for a ranger, far, far from ideal, which is what we'll get to next. But first, let's look at this top part of the character sheet. This is where we put the name, alignment, whoever's playing them, all that sort of details. So you can see that I have Ratty McRatface filled in there, but let's get the rest of it in there too. Alright, and the alignment that my patrons decided on for Ratty McRatface is chaotic neutral, because, I don't know, sometimes you want a little chaos in your life. The deity that they worship is Bri, who is the mother of creation, the patron goddess of inventors and the curious types. She's really cool. In addition, they are from Numeria, which is a kingdom in Golarion, which you can look up if you desire to do so. I'm not doing Golarion history in this video. Yeah. But the race-relevant choices here are that we filled in rat folk, and we've also entered that rat folk are small, which they are. For gender, I don't know, they don't seem to care about it. For age, and these parts were all randomly rolled on the starting table things, they are 15 years old, because rat folk adulthood is actually 12 years old. They're rats, what are you gonna do? They are 3 foot 10 inches tall and weigh 68 pounds. Their hair is rat-colored, and their eyes are black. Now, one important step before we start adding all of these racial modifiers and other bonuses, I need to just go here to the main section on the character page and enter in all of the stat values that we figured out using point buy. So we put a 15 in strength, 16 in dex, etc, etc. And you'll notice that the character sheet calculates all the modifiers for you, nice and easy, no worries. The temp column here is for if you get something that gives you a temporary bonus to one of those attributes, which can happen, not all the time, but pretty often. And where do we record those bonuses, you ask? Well, that's simple. You go to the Configuration tab, which you can see I've selected, and there's a whole race box, which is where you enter in all of the values that your race gets in various abilities and also the base speed of your race, because it's not always 30. There we go. I have -2 strength, +2 dex, +2 int, and a base speed of 20 entered for ratfolk because that's what ratfolk get. And if you're ever curious about what every race gets and how to enter it, well, you can look it all up. It's all available for free on any number of sources, my personal favorite being the D20 PFSRD, which is also where all of my links down in the video description are coming from. So you can find everything there. And as you can see, it changed our ability scores. Now the race bonuses are taken into effect. And since we're already on that first page, let's enter in our senses, which is dark vision up to 60 feet, and the languages that we know, which are common and then a number of bonus ones equal to our intelligence modifier, which as you can see is 2. I chose Goblin and Undercommon. I don't have a strong reason for either. If this was planned in a specific campaign, I might make changes to those. There's a number that I could have picked, and that's just what I pulled out of a hat, basically. In addition, we need to go to the Additional tab on the character sheet and enter in our racial traits. What you see here is the Tinker racial trait as a demonstration. You press the plus button and then you click the gear, enter in the name, set the type, and enter the description. The short description is used for things that let you pick one of a variety of things, or are centered around one particular aspect, or honestly, just a spot for you to take your own kind of short little notes. You don't have to open the full description every time you want to know what the ability does. And here I've entered all 4 of the base racial traits that ratfolk get. If you're curious about what they all do, the link to the ratfolk race is in the video description. I will not be reading them all, sorry. Race is all done. Next up, we have to choose a class. And we already know what it's going to be, that is Ranger. But where do you record that? Well, it's back on the configuration page, that funny little classes box. This is the place where you list any classes you have, as well as fill in some of their base values, and also where you declare if they're a spellcaster. So let me just fill this in with all the Ranger stuff. Give me just a moment. There we go. The Ranger, which we are selecting as our favored class, which is a decision you have to make when you first make the character, and all it really means is every time you gain a level in the class you have declared as your favored, you can choose to gain either 1 extra hit point or 1 extra skill point. For each class, there are some alternate options depending on your race. They range from not very good to actually really good, but they all require a bit of work and investment. Usually just saying, I want more HP or I want more skills is the right call to go. In this case, we chose 1 extra skill. In addition, Ranger's hit die is a D10. They have a +1 to their BAB at first level, +2 to Fort, +2 to Reflex, and no bonuses or penalties to Will or to Speed. Every class has a number of base skill ranks they get per level. For Rangers, that is 6. Then it adds your Intelligence modifier, and in our case, the favored class bonus, for a total of 9 skills. In addition, we check that the Ranger is a spellcaster because it is, but the Ranger does not have a caster level until it reaches 4th level. So we leave that at 0. We don't have to worry about the caster ability being wrong until we can actually cast spells. So it's fine to leave that for now. And then, just like with race, we have to add our class features, which is, again, back on the Additional tab on the character sheet. Here is the weapon and armor proficiency as an example. It's filled in much the same as just about everything else. And now we have all 4 of the starting class features that you get. You'll notice there is an EX after some of them. That stands for extraordinary. There are 3 classifications for those kinds of traits. EX for extraordinary, SU for supernatural, which means it's magical but not a spell, and then SP for spell-like, which means it's magical and kind of a spell, but not actually a spell, just similar to a spell. Why does this matter? Well, because in an area of anti-magic, extraordinary abilities keep working, while supernatural and spell-like don't. Spell-like abilities can also be countered by much of the same things that regular spells can be countered by, though not entirely, and the differences are minor, and we're not gonna get into them now, it probably won't come up in your games. Now, next on the list is skill ranks, but before we do that, this is where I would like to interject with traits. Now, traits are a fully optional feature, but one that I personally have always included in my games, and I've ruled that all characters start with 2, they just can't be 2 of the same kind. So I've selected both a religion and a combat trait for a couple of reasons. First, I selected ambush training, which is pretty self-explanatory. You gain a +1 trait bonus on initiative checks and a bonus on weapon damage rolls during surprise rounds, which I'm a big fan of. In addition to that, I also chose Nimble Fingers Keen Mind, which does require you to be a worshipper of Bry, which we are, and that's why we are. But this is also why I wanted to do traits before I did skills, because this trait in particular gives us a bonus on disabled device checks, and make sure that disabled device is always a class skill for us. What does that mean? We'll get to it, don't worry. Traits are entered in the same place as class and race features, so here we go, you know the drill by now. You can see ambush training entered there, as well as what I decided on the type. And then, because ambush training gives us a +1 to initiative, I went back to the main tab on the character sheet, clicked the gear next to initiative, and added a +1, also noting that where that's coming from is ambush training. In addition, I decided to make a buff, which is one of the best things of the Roll20 character sheet. Buffs will be your best friend. If you click on where it says Buffs and Conditions right under the Pathfinder logo, you see all the conditions there, which are the standard ones that are found in the Pathfinder core rulebook, but below that, there is the Buffs section. If you click on the plus, you can create your own buffs and name them whatever you want. And what they basically are is just a box you can check that you preload with what the ability does, and once you check it, those buffs apply, and you don't have to worry about updating them manually every time, or making like a billion different attacks on your character sheet, which I used to do for a while. It was a huge pain in the butt. And here you can see both of those traits listed under features and traits. Yes, I know the race traits are missing. That's because I forgot to take these screenshots in the proper order. Don't hurt me. Okay, now we can do skills, which, as you can see from the size of this list, is one of the things that does scare people off sometimes. But I promise it's not as bad as it looks. Most of these skills do exactly what it says on the tin, and if you're ever sure what you can and cannot do with a skill, well, there's really good free documentation and you can look it all up. And yes, you might have to look stuff up fairly often playing Pathfinder. It's not that different from other systems, but it's worth mentioning. Now, that column of checkboxes to the left is how we mark something as a class skill. Every class has a number of class skills. These are skills that members of that class are particularly good with. All they mean is that the first time you put a skill rank into that skill, you receive a one-time permanent +3 bonus to the skill. I've gone ahead and checked all of the Ranger's class skills, as well as disabled device, because of our trait. And now I've filled in the 9 skill ranks in what I figure are probably the best ones. All these choices are from my own experience playing, and also things that we are prone to be good at because of our ability scores. And because of how skill ranks work, we can always pick up other ones or put skills into non-class skills anytime we want to, well, any level up we want to when we have the skill ranks to do it, and invest into almost anything. Now, for those of you following along on a character sheet of your own, 1, good job, I'm proud of you. 2, I bet you're wondering what that Feats section is for. Well, that's when we get to this. Part 6 of character creation is to choose feats. and all characters start play with 1 feat, and they gain additional ones at every odd-numbered level. Humans start play with 1 additional feat. Fighters start play with another additional feat. So a first-level human fighter could potentially have 3 feats. They start as tripods. But because Ratty McRatface is a ratfolk, they do not start with an additional feat. They are also a ranger, so they again don't start with an additional feat. So they just get the 1. Now, you have a lot of options. I've linked to the full feat tree down in the video description if you want to peruse them. Warning, it's very long. But, as someone using a ranged weapon primarily, there is 1 feat that I'm just gonna go ahead and say is probably the best choice for a first level character. There's other ways you can go, there's other routes you can potentially take, but Point Blank Shot, in addition to being very strong, also unlocks so many more ranged weapon feats, and it's sort of the gateway to everything else down the tree. So it's what I started with because it's probably the right choice. And feats are entered the same as anything else. Just make sure you select the correct type of feat from the drop-down menu. And just like with ambush training, I decided to make a buff for Point Blank Shot as well. So anytime you're within 30 feet of your target, you get to select this buff and it automatically adds +1 to your attacks and your damage rolls. Really just makes the whole process of combat and figuring out your bonuses and all that other stuff so much easier. Just check all the conditions that you have, roll an attack, and look at your damage numbers. Congrats, you've got it correct. Note that the Roll20 sheet does have some limitations, and it's kind of just an issue with the platform itself. So there are still going to be a few things that you'll have to do mentally, but saying, oh, that's an additional +2 is not a huge deal. Most people can do number +2, and if you can't, chances are one of your other players can. Okay, we are coming very close to being done. The next step is determining your maximum hit points. This one is very easy. You get the maximum roll for your hit die at level 1, plus your favorite class bonus, if any, plus your constitution bonus, if any. You record this on the main tab of your character sheet, right where it says hit points. And as you can see, because our con bonus is +0, and because we're doing skills for our favorite class, our hit points at level 1 are 10, which is still better than most spellcasters. Sorry wizards, you and your d6 hit die can go over there and cry in the corner because you got touched once. Alright, there is just 1 step left, and that is the most fun step of all. It's time to go shopping! Yay! Oh my god, shopping! Oh my god, you guys, we get to go shop! I'm never doing that voice again, don't worry. Right, so those 2 big sections on the additional tab, the AC items and the gear, well, would you be surprised to know that that is where your gear goes? I know, it's a shock. It also shows your carrying capacity expressed in terms of a light load, a medium load, and a heavy load, which incur no penalty, a little bit of a penalty, and oh boy, you don't want to do this amount of a penalty, respectively. Sidebar, I know it says 30 feet there, that's again because I took these screenshots slightly in the wrong order. First up, let's do armor. Now, a pretty standard starting armor for a ranger is the studded leather. It's really solid, it's hard to go wrong, it's also pretty cheap. So we're gonna spend 25 gold pieces and we're gonna get some studded leather armor. Now, normally, studded leather armor weighs 20 pounds, but because we are small-sized, it weighs half that much. And that's gonna be true of all of the rest of our equipment, because it's sized for a small creature, not a medium one. This just in, smaller things weigh less. Who would have thought? Sadly, they don't cost less, so it's still 25 gold. And you enter this equipment much like we entered everything else. You click on the plus, you type in the name, how many of it you have, as well as the weight. You can expand it to have cost and all sorts of other stuff, any notes or anything you want to put in there as well. But, because armor provides AC, we have to go up to the AC items and add it there as well. That is what will add it to our AC. Pretty self-explanatory, really, when we get down to it. So, we add the studded leather armor, and we enter in all the attributes of the armor, which obviously you can find on the page, or the table where you got it. So in this case, it gives us 3 AC, it's light armor, it has a -1 armor check penalty, gives us a maximum dexterity bonus to our AC of 5, and for arcane spellcasters, it has a 15% spell failure chance. Luckily for us, we are not an arcane spellcaster. Well, we're not a spellcaster at all yet, but eventually we will not be an arcane spellcaster, so we don't care about that. Armor check penalty is a penalty you incur for wearing armor that essentially interferes with your movements in any way, which almost all armor does. It's armor, and it gives you that amount of penalty to all strength and dexterity-based skill checks. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. It's not that bad, though it can be if you let it get out of hand. Armor done? What's next? Oh right, the fun part. Weapons! In this case, we're just going to be starting with a regular longbow for now, with plans to eventually sell that and upgrade it to a composite longbow. The issue is, composite longbows are very expensive, and first level characters don't start with that much money. As a ranger, we start with 175 gold pieces, which is more than a lot of other classes, but still not enough to afford the quality of composite longbow we would need to get the strength bonus. So we have to get it later, after we get a little bit of money, a few quests in. Gold flows like crazy in Pathfinder, don't you worry. So now we've got the bow added, let's add the attack. If we go back over to the main tab, you can see weapons and attacks is a huge section off to the left. If we click the plus, as always, we can add our longbow. We just fill in all the categories and all the information about the bow. It is a ranged weapon, it is a martial weapon, and for the attacks we use our base ranged bonus, which is essentially our BAB, which is 1, plus our dexterity modifier. There aren't any other bonuses or penalties to the attacks at level 1 that we have right now, so we don't have to fill anything in for the rest. Versus AC just means that it goes against our enemy's regular AC, which it does. Critical range is how often the weapon crits. In this case, it only threatens a critical on a roll of a natural 20. You will still need to roll to confirm that critical, which just means that you roll the attack a second time. If it hits at all, not crits, the critical is confirmed and you get the damage bonus. Which, for our damage, it currently does 1d6 plus nothing, although it does do +1 if we're within 30 feet, and that does increase on criticals. Also, it deals piercing damage because it's a bow with arrows. But the really spicy part is when you crit, it deals ×3 damage. And this is not like 5e. You get triple total. Whatever your crit multiplier is, you multiply the number of dice you roll by that, and also the bonus by that. So, for example, if we had point blank shot, and it was a surprise round, and we got a crit, that's going to roll 3d6 plus 6. Oh yeah, longbows don't crit super often, but when they do, it is nasty. Crits are so satisfying in Pathfinder because the damage really does go through the roof when you do it. Most weapons are ×2, a decent number are ×3, and there's even a few that are ×4. I see all you scythe and heavy pick users out there. I see you. The only thing left to do is fill in all other equipment, which I've gone ahead and just entered in some pretty basic, pretty standard adventurer gear. This isn't complete by any means, and you should always tweak it for your specific campaign and your specific needs, but this is some standard stuff. There's 2 different kinds of arrows in there because diversifying your damage types is very important. Blunt arrows are just like arrows, except they do bludgeoning damage instead of piercing damage, which is super important if you're suddenly up against skeletons, for example. Blunt arrows are also actually capable of doing non-lethal damage. Regular arrows are not, so that's cool. I also added a melee weapon on there, just a short sword, because it's cheap, it's light, it's easy to use. Why not? You gotta have something if you get trapped in melee. Okay, so this is what a fully filled out main tab on a character sheet should look like. It has all of your stats, your hit points, your initiative, AC, all that good stuff, along with your saves, your base attack bonus, CMB, CMD. If you aren't sure what all of these things are, Refamiliarize yourself with the rules. It would take me a while to explain everything in this video, and we're just going through character creation. For now, just know higher numbers are better on all of these things. You can also see the weapons I added. I also made the short sword attack, and their associated damages. Now, Rangers are kinda low damage at level 1, and then they start to explode as they get higher and higher level, doing multiple attacks sooner than anyone else, and just launching arrows at everything they can see. They turn into buzzsaws. They're really fun to play, especially if you make it to about level 3 or higher, and if you get to 6, oh, game's just over, you win! And here is what a fully filled out additional tab should look like. You've seen all this stuff before, but it's good to see it all put together at once. Oh, you can also see the leftover money after I bought all of the things. Just as a point of reference, by the time you hit level 2, you're expected to have 1,000 gold pieces. That is the average wealth by level for a second level character. So when I said that the money comes fast, the money comes very fast. It's a great time. And here's the full configuration tab. There are a lot of advanced options here. You can also use the Character Mancer, though, unless you have an extended compendium, it's only going to support classes and races from the core rulebook, so just realize that is a limitation. It's the same as any other RPG on Roll20. This could also be called the Advanced page, and I'm not going to do a full tutorial on all of this stuff now, though I might in the future if there's an interest for it, because I am actually very good at Roll20. It's fun, I use it all the time for way too long. But what do you say we make a few sample attacks just to see how Ratty McRatface is? Ooh, that's pretty good, and max damage too. Now that one was with no buffs. Let's see how it does with all of the buffs. Oh, a crit! Not sure if that's gonna confirm, but if it does, 18 damage at level 1. That is rather nice. Ratty McRatface is off to a great start, and you know what? Just for all of you, whatever Pathfinder game I end up playing in next, I'm gonna play Ratty McRatface. I might make some changes to my own taste, or adjustments to things, because I tend to optimize characters a lot when I'm actually playing them, more so than I did in this video at the very least, and I'll definitely be applying some more advanced stuff to it, archetypes, all that kind of thing. But none of that I really wanted to cover here, because you don't need to know it all just to get started. Heck, if I wanted this to be a brand new first time ever beginner's guide, I would have stuck to CRB races, but the patrons wanted rat folk, so Ratty McRatface was born. They look like they could be a lot of fun. And that will do it! That is how you create a Pathfinder 1st Edition character. Once again, all of the sources for everything, as well as D20 PFSRD's walkthrough guide for character creation, is linked down in the description below. There's a number of other resources out there that you can use to help you, but I wanted to do everything as manually as possible this first time, because it's nice to at least know what's happening and how to do it. I'm gonna be completely honest, I still use a lot of those assistance tools to this day, just because they're a little bit faster. And I know it seemed like this video took a while, but I was covering everything in excruciating detail because I am like that, apparently. And also because I want to make sure you guys actually learn something and understand what's going on. This video is probably way too long, but it only actually took me 10 minutes or so to build Ratty McRatface on my own, but that's because I'm a very experienced player and I know this whole process in the back of my hand. Also, I can kinda build a ranger in my sleep. They're not the most complicated class at level 1. That's not to say they're bad, they're very good. They are very, very good. Do not let anyone tell you rangers, okay, well if you're playing 5e, apparently they're very bad, which has apparently been fixed, and there's a lot of debate if they were ever bad. We're not gonna get into it. We're just gonna stick with Pathfinder 1st Edition rangers, who are universally very good. And you can take this exact same process and just look up the things that other classes can do, other races can do, and repeat the steps I took here, and you will result with a fully built and functional character at level 1. Don't be upset with yourself if it takes you more than 10 minutes for your first few. That's pretty normal. Though a lot of people say that it takes 6 hours or 8 hours to build a character, and that just isn't true. Like, yes, you do have some decisions you have to make, especially in regards to feats, skill ranks, or traits if your game is using them, but you don't have to read every single one. Because yeah, I'll agree, reading every single trait and every single feat is gonna take you like 8 hours. There's a bunch of them. But you don't need to. Really, what I would do is just go to the feat tree, linked in the description below, hit Control F, and search for things that you want to do, like ranged weapons, which will pull up the point-blank shot tree. And you can see that all of the other feats that come after point-blank shot require point-blank shot, so you know, I probably need this first to do these other things. Very simple, very easy. Some people like to say that you should have a build from level 1 to level 20 when you create the character. You don't need to do that. Most players are going to be perfectly fine if they're kind of making it up as they go along, unless you're playing in a super hyper-optimized campaign that is not friendly to new players, in which case you shouldn't be playing in that game as a new player anyway, regardless of the situation or the system. So please, take this knowledge I have bestowed upon you, go and build 1,000... Don't build 1,000. But build one. Build a Pathfinder 1st edition character using the resources I linked below. There's a lot of fun to be had, and honestly there are so many classes, so many races, and so many possible permutations on each of those that no two Pathfinder 1st edition characters are going to look the same. Like, unless you're copying someone else's build entirely, which is fine, feel free to do that. There's a lot of good builds out there on the internet if you decide you need a build, but you don't want to go through the process of doing it yourself. Absolutely go for it. There's so much. Which really, that's why I love Pathfinder. There are options for days, everything is different, and you can really, truly build out a character, not just, I'm a fighter. Your fighter is not going to look anything like my fighter, other than, being good at using weapons. That's about the only through line they'll both share. Geez, especially human fighters, because of the extra feat, you can build them in so many different directions, starting at level 1. So even the air quotes, most boring class and race combo in the game isn't boring, it's wonderful. In fact, I actually kind of recommend it. Build yourself a human fighter first. You'll love the freedom. Oh wow, I've been rambling about this point for almost 5 minutes. What do you say we call it good there? Build a Pathfinder character. Show it to me. I want to see it. Hey, guess what? You're getting a song parody. Are you ready? Are you ready? Do you wanna build a rat folk? They'll shoot you with a bow. When it comes to tracking animals, they'll find them all. It's like they're in the know. They don't have much charisma. It's their big flaw. Talking they just cannot do. Yes, I wanna build a rat folk. How about you? I spent way too much time writing that. I hope you liked it. Anyway, don't forget to like the video if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not yet done so, ring the bell notification icon if you would like to be notified when I upload new videos, and leave me your comments down in the comments section below. And don't forget, you can join the FoxyBard Discord server. The link to that is in the video description. And now it's time to thank all my lovely patrons over on patreon.com/FoxyBard. Critical Kunik, Amma Anthro, Phantom, Jowser, Lord First, Fractal Dawn, Stephen Reyes, Sylvia, Cintaria, Tegan Longtail, Thunder Leopard, Ebob Flo, ZeroFang881, and Zorolo. I love and appreciate you all so much, and if you too would like to join that illustrious list of wonderful, incredible Fox kits, head on over to patreon.com/FoxyBard and you can sign up there. My patrons are one of the big reasons I can keep doing what I do and bringing you content like this that I really hope you liked. I really hope you liked this video. It took a lot of work to make. Seriously, I think this video took more work than any other video I've ever done. That's on me. I'm the one who did this. I did this to myself. I'm fully to blame, and yet, here we are. I really hope you liked it. If you want to see more content like this, please let me know. That's the best way I know that you enjoyed something, is you telling me by either liking the video or just saying something in the comments. You can also join the Discord and say, "Hey Foxy, give us more tutorials on how to do stupid Pathfinder things." And then I'll know. But until you do join my Discord and start yelling at me, let's douse the fire and get back to our own adventures.